There were numerous causes to the civil war in Tajikistan, such as the economic hardship, communal way of life for the Tajik people, and their high religiosity. Under Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev, perestroika's policies in a Muslim democratic movement began to emerge in the Tajiki SSR. The backbone of the opposition were the Party of the Tajik Muslim Resurrection, Democratic Party of Tajikistan, and some other movements as well in the country. The fight between the former communist elite and the opposition shifted from the political sphere to an ethnic and even clan-based sphere and won. Tensions began to spring in 1992 after the opposition members took to the streets in demonstrations against the results of the 1991 presidential election. President Ramon Nabiev and the Speaker of the Supreme Soviet Shafali Kanjayev orchestrated the dispersal of weapons to pro-government militias, while the opposition turned to the Mujahideen in Afghanistan, which was still fighting their civil war at the time, for military aid. Fighting broke out in May 1992 between the oligarch supporters of the government and a loosely organized opposition comprised of ethnic and even religious groups from the Gram and the Gorno-Bagagikasha region, the latter of which was known as the Palmarish. Ideologically, the opposition included democratic liberal reformists and even Islamists. The government, on the other hand, was dominated by people of the Leningrad region, which had also made up most of the ruling elite during the entire Soviet period, from 1921 to 1990. It was also supported by people from the Kobul region, who had held high posts in the Ministry of Internal Affairs in Soviet times. So after many clashes, the Leningradists were forced to accept a compromise and a new coalition government was formed, incorporating members of the opposition and eventually dominated by them. By the 7th of September 1992, Nabayev, who was captured by opposition protesters and forced at gunpoint to resign the presidency, was, forced to resign. Chaos and fighting between the opposition factions reigned outside of the capital of Dushanbe. So with the aid of the Russian military and Uzbekistan, the Leningradi Kolabali Popular Front forces routed the opposition in early and late 1992. The coalition government in the capital was forced to resign. In December 1992, the Supreme Soviet, which was the parliament, where the Leningradi Kolabali faction had held the majority of the seats all along from Soviet times, convened and elected the new government under the leadership of Emomali Ramonov, representing a shift in power from the old power base in Leningrad to the militants from Kobul, where and which Ramonov had came from. The heights of hostilities occurred between 1992 and 1993 and pitted the Kobali militias against an array of groups, including militants from the Islamic Resistance Party of Tajikistan, or the IRP, and the ethnic minority Panamanish from the Gorno-Bakistan region, or Bagagasta. So in large part due to the foreign support they received, the Kobali militia, or the Kobali militia, were able to soundly defeat the opposition forces to what has been described by Human Rights Watch as an ethnic cleansing campaign against the Panamishis and the Garamish. The campaign was concentrated in the areas of the south of the capital, Danbashi, and included the murder of prominent individuals, mass killings, the burning of villages, and the expulsion of the Parami and the Garami population into Afghanistan. The violence was particularly concentrated in the Quartagon-Kantapa, or Quartagon-Tempa, which the power base of the IRP and the home of many Garamishes were. Tens of thousands were killed or fled to the war in Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, the opposition recognized and even reorganized and negotiated with the Taliban and the Northern Alliance, and renamed with the aid of the Jamaat-il-Ismaili Party in Afghanistan. The group's leader, Hamid Shah Massoud, became a benefactor of the Tajik opposition. Later in the war, the opposition organized under an umbrella group called the United Tajik Opposition, or the UTO, Elements of the UTO, especially the Taraveladar region, became the Islamic movement of Uzbekistan, while the leadership of the UTO was opposed to the formation of the organization altogether. Other combatants and armed bands or bandits that flourished in this civil chaos simply reflected the breakdown of central authority rather than the loyalty to the political faction they actually had. In response to the violence, the United Nations mission of observers to Tajikistan were deployed. Most fighting in the early parts of the war occurred in the southern part of the country, but by 1996 the rebels were battling Russian troops in the capital city of Dumbashi. Islamic radicals from northern Afghanistan also began to fight the Russian troops in the region as well. The United Nations sponsored an armistice, finally ending the war in 1997. This was in part fostered by the Inter-Tajik Dialogue, or a Track 2 diplomacy initiative, in which the main players were brought together by international actors, namely the United States and the now Russian Federation. The peace agreement completely eliminated the Leninbady region, or Kurdistan, from power. Presidential elections were held in November, or the 6th of November 1999. The UTO warned in letters to the United Nations Secretary-General Kofi Annan and Tajik President Imola Rahmon on the 23rd of June 1997 that it would not sign the proposed peace agreement on the 27th of June if prisoners exchanged and the allocations of jobs in the coalition government were not outlined in the agreement. So Akbar Tudonzoda, second in command of the UTO, repeated this warning on the 26th of June, but both sides were already negotiating. President Ramov, UNT leader Said Abdulin Nori, and President of Russia, the Russian President Boris Yeltsin, met in the Kremlin in Moscow on the 26th of June to finish the negotiations of the peace agreement. The Tajik government has previously pushed for setting these issues after the two sides signed the agreement, with the post in the coalition government decided by Joint Commission for National Reconciliation and prisoner exchange by future sets of negotiation. Russian Foreign Minister Yevgeny Peremorikov met with the foreign ministers of Iran, Kazakhstan, and Turkmenistan to discuss the proposed peace accords. By the end of the war, Tajikistan was in a state of complete devastation. The number of those killed were estimated anywhere from 30,000 to as many as 60,000. Around 1.2 million people were refugees inside or even outside of their own country. Tajikistan's physical infrastructure, government service, and economy were in disarray or non-existent. Much of the population was surviving on subsidies and sustenance handouts from international aid organizations. The United Nations established the mission of observers in December 1994, maintaining peace negotiations until the warring sides signed the Comprehensive Peace Agreement in 1997. Journalists were particularly targeted in the assassination, and dozens of Tajik journalists were killed. Many more fled the country, leading to a brain drain. Notable individuals murdered include journalists and political activists and politicians. Otakahon Lafayette, journalist and Jewish leader Merkahim Gravilov, politician Shafrali Kanjaviev, and four members of the United Nations mission of observers in Tajikistan. Yukata Akino, a noted Japanese scholar and Central Asian historian, Major Rezavov Shakarizak from Poland, Major Adolf Spragapiengi from Uruguay, and Jorajon Makharov from Tajikistan, and documentary filmmaker Arkady Ramadan from Belarus. And that is the Tajik Civil War. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something. Pretty good, pretty standard. Just a little bit low energy. I just really wanted to concentrate on it, but that was actually pretty good. Anyway, I think this is gonna be it. I think I might got one more week, probably by August. But tomorrow is fitting. Monday is test. So I believe like 2 more weeks till I pack my stuff. But we're gonna make it the best 2 weeks possible. And I know I'm kind of late. I know I'm kind of slacking, but it's been a great journey. And I'll make my final goodbye. But for right now, remember, look both ways when you cross the street. Islamists in the north and Islamists in the south. Where do you go when you have to eat? Um, Terrible rhyme, but Afghanistan Civil War, whenever it come back, could possibly be on the table. 1989 could be on the table, and any other thing after that could be on the table. So I'ma just put this out for fun. I hope you enjoyed. Interesting conflict in the post-Soviet era. I think this is the only republic to have a civil war. I guess I can make an intro right now. Anyway, the Soviet Union has now disintegrated, and now in 1991, Tajikistan will be the only Soviet republic post-communist to have a civil war. I think. Here is the Tajik Civil War. Anyway, guys, to be very meta, I think I'm gonna end it here. I hope you learned something. I'll see you next time. And when I see you next time, I'll see you next time. Anyway, stay safe, learn something, love yourself. Later, my guys, girls, and NB. Yeah, I'm really digging this kind of like radio announcer voice. I kind of like it. I kind of like it. I was like kind of stiff when I was talking about stuff, but I mean, the kind of smoother, kind of nicer voice is actually pretty good as well. So that's actually pretty good too. I'll see you on it later, and so long. Anything you have to say? Not really, not a lot of jokes to say about here, but it is a Muslim country, so Allahu Akbar. See you later.